Okay, guys. I had a power outage. That's all I can say, and it dumped off. So I'm going to pick up of where I left off of the last part of the trade review. If you want to go see it, it's sitting there, and it'll be on the blog later tonight. So importantly, when you look at this, right, what you will see, and what we were referring to was this morning was, well, how do we figure out if the market was going to roll lower or not? And so the first clue when you're looking at order flow and using the waves, and these are delta waves at figuring out order flow, is you want new pushes to highs on the day on the delta waves to push you to a new high of the day. If it fails to do that, right, when you look at this and you go, hey, right, when you look at this right here, and let's get to Friday really quick, 8 a.m., Monday morning, excuse me, 8 a.m. When you look at the open, which is right over here, sorry about that. Let's pull this in. The data is so small at this point. Okay, when you look at the open, which is right here, and you go, hey, that's my biggest push, right? If I draw a line across that of the overnight session, which makes sense. The market just opened, right? And we get our biggest push. You can see even going back to late Sunday night, that was our biggest push. So the first thing I say to myself is, hey, this should result in a break of the swing high and a push up to value area. So when you get a big push and you don't get what you expect, which is a push to the downside, what I come in is I look at that wave and I go, okay, if I get underneath this wave, right? If I get underneath the beginning of the push of that wave, which is essentially, and I'm going to do this much quicker than I do in the room, that's the beginning of my wave right there. Here we'll color it blue. And you can see once we close underneath it, we backside test the bottom of that wave, and it sets up a beautiful roll to the downside. That is order flow trading right there, guys. What we're doing is we opened up above, right? We opened above value area low. We opened above the volume points of control and the TPO points of control, and we should have been able to hold this, right? What should have happened is we should have come in here, right, out of the gate. We tested in right before the market opened. We should have opened up maybe a quick tap, and then what you would have wanted to see if we were going to push is a push straight out. Instead, we close underneath, we do a quick backside test, we do one more attempt at a backside test, and they roll it over hard. So now this is where things got interesting on the downside. See this over here? This is, I'm going to pull this in so you can see the difference at what we are looking at here. This is at low going back to last week, right? So see this giant push over here? See this giant push right here? It's not hard. I'm pointing right to it. It's the biggest push down. So a couple of things. I know when I get underneath that, right, or if I hold underneath this push, which I can draw a line right here, if I hold underneath that push, that I should, right? So what you're trying to do when you're trading is you're trying to think logically and what should happen. Imagine it as if you're watching a sporting event, basketball game, a football game, where, if it's second down and 2 on the 2-yard line, you expect the ball to be handed off and then for them to punch it into the end zone, right? Well, look, when I get underneath the biggest roll to the downside, and then I follow that up with the biggest push to the downside, and then I get underneath that biggest push, I expect that swing low to get tested, right? And here's the deal. So did everybody else, right? That's the cool thing about this. Everyone thought we were going to test the low. Everyone starts shorting in here, right? They're like, oh, we're going to roll back to the downside. And so what you'll see as we get underneath here, what you'll see is a massive delta divergence underneath. See that right there? All the way through here, the lower we go, the less cumulative delta is being pumped into that push lower. So watch what happens. Now, you can have this extend for a long time. But see this yellow line now is the bottom of that push. See, as soon as we close back into that biggest rotation, right? So I want to make sure that everyone understands what I'm saying here. Once we close back into this biggest rotation right here, right? Even if you didn't pick off the low, everyone who shorted underneath this push on less energy, right? So they were trying to push lower, but they had fewer and fewer friends. I don't know how else to describe it. I try to use all kinds of analogies to make people understand. They were pushing price down without getting any support from other people. As soon as we closed back into this range, these guys had to cover, and that's exactly what happened. We cover, and we swing to the other end of the range, right? And do you know what this blue line is up here that we traded right up to? We trade right up to the bottom of, right, the best push of the US session and the overnight session right here. And we reject right out of it, right? So I'm going to stop there because I can go on and on through every setup for the day. And I want to make sure that everyone understands. When we came in today, we weren't trading above value area high. That's this purple line over there. That was a requirement to trend up. You have to get out of Friday's value area to push to the upside. That never happened. And when we got the biggest push of the session, we were unable to get there, and they were unable to trade above. You kind of scratch your head and go, we trended up overnight. We opened up ugly, and then we pushed all the way through here. You would think, hey, that would be a relatively easy trade to make. Nope, not a relatively easy trade to make. They struggled. And then once they got underneath that rotation, they sold it off. Now, once you got down here and you saw this push down, you're like, hey, we're going to naturally come down and test this swing low here at the bottom, right? Well, what you see is that the energy just dropped off enormously after 9 a.m., right? And not only did the energy drop off enormously, look at the build and the volume, right? When we trapped all the shorts, this is what shorts getting trapped look like. You can draw a trend line right across the top of that, just like this, right? And you can see as soon as we, not only did we break the trend line, but then we close back into the biggest wave down, right? Wave, picture that as energy. A wave has energy. Closed in, all the shorts are trapped, immediately forces a short cover. And then when we get up here, you'll see again, see how we came right up to the biggest push and we matched that for the day. But think about that again. Hey, we just got the biggest push, right? And we couldn't make it back up. And what you're going to see here is on this biggest push, if you come and key off of this, and we do this all day long on the rim, right? That became the bottom of that push. And this got really tricky because we got choppy here late in the afternoon. But what you can see is essentially once we closed underneath that wave, right, we bounced, and we finally rolled to the downside. That was at 10:43. We finally rolled to the downside, and then again, we ran out of energy again down there. They couldn't make the push to the low. So what will be interesting for tonight, right, as you look through that day where they couldn't make the push again, and I'm not going to go through every setup. It would take too long. But what's interesting for tonight now is, hey, if we get below 27.48, things have changed because there was no energy to push us even down to test 27.48. Two things. I expect an attempted response back up from 27.48 to push back higher. But if we establish and hold underneath 27.48, there's a long way to go before we get to the next support area. And that would, holding below 27.48 sets us up for a test of 27.12. So before I go, I want you to, I want everyone to see one more thing. When you look at the profile here, I want to help everyone set it up. I'm not even going to touch on NQ. We had a big day in NQ, but I am running out of time, and I want to set this chart up for everybody so they can see it in real time. So what am I concerned about? I don't think there's that big a mystery to profile trading, so I'm not going to make it that big a mystery, right? Value area low. I colored those on my chart purple. I'll post this up later tonight for everyone to see, right? And I have two clear targets above, okay? So I have the point of control right here, right? So when we open, we went out at 27.56. I have a couple of questions when we open up in Asia, and those will be the same questions when we get to Europe, and they'll be the same questions when we get to the U.S. session. I started new. Number one, are we trading above or below value area low? My first question. Trading below value area low, which is right where we closed. You'll see right there, if we fail to trade below value area low, then if we fail to trade below value area low, right, then we probably going to come up and test this 27.60, and it's probably going to be choppy. What I really want to see is holding above, sorry, wrong thing, holding above value area high. Why? See how there's no naked points of control? This is an untested value area high. This gives me a chance to test potentially all the way up to 28.11, right? There's really just not much standing in the way. There are some areas here. I'll mark them off real quick. There's an anomaly right here. This is actually your first target is at 27.86 to 28.75. And then this completes. Okay, so this is special right here. The next resistance is actually this whole anomaly right here. And I block them off at the end instead of using the whole anomaly. Well, hold on a second here. Okay, so this is your extended target. And why is it your extended target instead of making this? Because instead of making the 28.11, because from 27.60, if you add 20 points, that would obviously put us at 27.80, which is a retest of today's high. We had a good high, but if it can break it, this puts us at 25 to 30 up, and most of the time it exhausts us. So these are my two primary targets to the upside. And then my extended target would become 28.10 to 28.13. So three clear targets above: 86.50 to 88.75, 93.50 to 95 and a quarter, right? And then 28.13 to 28.10. And at each of those locations, I would expect there to be a counter rotation, right? Within here, it's inside value. I expect there to be whips both ways instead of getting clear directions. You know, when you're inside the blue area, which is the value area, it's choppy and not easy to get a directional move. It can be done. It's just not easy, right? And then finally, holding underneath 27.96. When I look to the left, what concerns me the most about this chart is there's no untested anomalies, TPOs, or points of control all the way down to 26.98 and a quarter to 26.95.50. Now, if you are a trader and you're looking for a big sweep, that becomes the big sweep. And then there's one more piece to put in on that chart that's an important location, which is I expect attempts to hold the low on the retest of the low from back on 10.11. I expect that to get retested in the first time in to act as a potential trap. I'm concerned with runs down into this area overnight, but not gapping below. Like if we trend down, but we don't gap below, look for a response back up out of that area. And then lastly, if we do come into this anomaly, we close at 27.56. This would be almost 60 points down. We achieved that last week when we were having really big range rotations. Look for traps or responses out of this 26.95. And then the second, if we get below 27.12, the first close above, I'm not so concerned about, but the second close above could also generate a massive push back to that 27.50, 27.60. At some point, the bears will trap themselves, and we'll go from there. But this area right here for counter trading prior to it getting retested and reestablished that's a lot of empty space right there without a lot of easy support. My suggestion is this: trade smart, protect your capital, learn to read order flow intraday, and understand how that order flow unfolds against the backdrop of the bigger picture, which is what this TPO is. And at any rate, that is my hold on one second. Let me answer my daughter really quick. That is my 2 cents. Actually, I don't even have to answer it. That is my 2 cents about how I would how I'm looking to trade tomorrow. I'm not going to be trading overnight, and it is concerning that NQ rallied really pretty easily today, and ES had anchors around its feet. I know the banking sector was weak all day today, right? If you'd like to join us in the room, send me a request to the email is tradertough@gmail.com. And if you like this video, if you please hit the like button, it helps me with customer service at YouTube. So anyways, have a great night, guys. Trade safe. Build your accounts. It's very doable. Anyone can learn how to trade, but you got to take the time to learn how to trade. And this environment wipes less sophisticated retail traders out very, very quickly. Okay, I'll talk to you later. Have a good night, guys.